أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا السماء انشقت وأذنت لربها وحقت وإذا الأرض مدت وألقت ما فيها وتخلت وأذنت لربها وحقت رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم ما بعد. So today Surah Al-Inshiqaq is what I want to start with, and in Surah Al-Inshiqaq you can argue that there are 4 sections to the subject matter of the surah. And the first section, the first 5 ayat, are similar to Surah Al-Infitar and Surah Al-Takwir in that they describe the cataclysmic events of the final day. And the format of them is also very similar to إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ and إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ, and this is إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْشَقَّتْ, right? So it's taking the same literary format that those other surahs took in the introduction, right? So those will be the first 5 ayat. Then from there, and it's an interesting subject change, from ayah number 6 to ayah number 15, you have the current journey of human beings and the current path, the trajectory that they're on, and where it leads, what conclusion it leads to. Then it takes a step back in section 3. So you can think of it as the journey of the worlds comes to an end in the beginning. Then it takes a step back and shows human beings that they're actually heading towards the end, that end journey. And it walks human beings through their own personal cataclysm, their own personal, eventual, terrible calamity that they may or may not have to face towards the end of time. And then the third section, from ayahs number 16 to 21, I believe, is a reflection on life and how life progresses. And of course, when we talk about the end of Judgment Day, and we talk about humanity coming to an end and the questioning beginning and all of that, it seems like a really far away thing. And how much of an era is left before we face that. But Allah makes us reflect about that great time that's coming through reflection on a late afternoon. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالشَّفَقِ. From a late afternoon, Asr time, you could say late Asr time, to like the dark evening. Like that entire transition, He makes us reflect on that transition and wants us to think about the coming of these events as you think about the progression of an evening. Okay? So that's going to come in ayahs number 16 to 21. And finally, the closing lessons are, just to take the warning, is in ayat number 22 to 25 when the surah concludes. There's also, you're supposed to be, there's an ayah of sajda, I believe, coming here also, right? So this is the sort of the layout of this beautiful surah. Now, just in 1 or 2 ways how it's different from the other 2 surahs that are apparently similar to it, right? Even as a child, when you're memorizing, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْشَقَّتْ, you could tell that they're similar, right? We already read before, يَا أَيُّهَا الْإِنسَانِ مَا غَرَّكَ بِرَبِّكَ الْكَرِيمِ. Remember that? Now we're going to read, يَا أَيُّهَا الْإِنسَانِ إِنَّكَ كَادِحٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ كَدْحًا فَمُلَاقِيهِ. So you have similar ayat. But they are different also. In the other surahs, you'll notice that there was a call for human beings to recognize to accept the sense of morality, the sense of justice that they have within themselves. Surah Al-Takwir talked about the injustices of the baby girl and the scrolls being rolled out and all of that, right? So it's our personal conscience that's being shaken. This surah actually has another theme, a slightly different theme to get to the subject of the afterlife. And the theme of this surah actually is inevitability. That there are some things that are bound to happen. They're just, you can't avoid them. They are going to be as they're going, things are going to happen, you can't change that. You can't change it. So of course an easy example of that that's coming, inshallah, is when you see the late afternoon, well, the sunset is coming. You can't do anything about that. From sunset, the sky is going to be more blue, but from blue to black, it'll turn. And you can't help that. There's nothing you can do about that. It's going to happen. It's going to go from one stage to another, to another, to another. It's inevitable. And it's supposed to be this way. Okay? It's designed to do this, right? So that's going to be the argument of the akhirah. Actually, just like a day is supposed to come to its conclusion, this world is supposed to come to its conclusion. There's nothing you can do about that. And you and I are supposed to come to our conclusion. There's nothing we can do about that. We have to face certain realities. And just so that argument of inevitability is at the center of the surah. So anyway, let's begin. إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْشَقَّتْ. When the sky is, what is inshaqqat? Is that fi'il madi, mudari'? What is that? And if you were to try to match it to one of the families that you've learned, Inshiqqat. Yeah, it's infa'ala. It's infa'ala. Very good. And inshaqqa, it doesn't have any majhul, right? It doesn't have any passive. So in other words, Allah used a word that describes the sky itself falling apart. The sky itself is going to be torn open on its own. It's as though it was being held up for, like a building's being held up for a long time, and it crumbles and it crumbles and it crumbles, and you didn't have to, get a demolition crew to make it fall apart. It kind of collapsed on its own. That's the wording of inshaqqat. Now there are other places in the Quran where Allah describes what Allah will do to the sky. وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ. That's the majhul form, right? وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. The sky will be opened up. It will be opened up. So the damages that are done, and it's almost like, you're doing continual damage to something, and then you kind of let it go, and you let it collapse on its own. So this is إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ. Now there's some things about the word shaqqa. Shaqqa means to tear violently in Arabic, and to tear something through something rigid. Like inshiqaq would be a crack in a chair to the point where it's broken into two halves. Inshiqaq is also used, for example, when they used to skin animals and they tore the skin off of the flesh, or when they tore the flesh off of the bones, when they're trying to separate the parts of an animal, they would use inshiqaq. Allah uses the same term when He says, فَإِذَا انشَقَّتِ السَّمَاءُ فَكَانَتْ وَرْدَةً كَالدِّهَانِ in Surah Ar-Rahman. He says when the sky is torn open, it'll turn blood red. And actually made a parallel between the sky being torn open and an animal being torn when it's being slaughtered. And that's, when the animals, the skin is removed, you see the red of the flesh, right? And Allah describes the same wording of the sky being torn open like an animal being slaughtered. And like a helpless animal before the slaughterer is Allah describing His role with the sky. Like He's just going to tear it open just like it can't do anything about it. So that's why إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ. But this ayah is fascinating. وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا وَحُقَّتْ. Adhina means two things in Arabic. You have in Arabic, adhina ya'dhanu, idhnan, which actually means to give permission. It's similar to sami'a yasma'u, because the madi has a kasra and the mudari' has a fatha, adhina ya'dhanu. And then you also have adhina ya'dhinu. Adhina ya'dhinu. So you have two of them. And so one, adhina ya'dhinu actually is to listen carefully. To listen very, very attentively, carefully. Okay? So both of those are related to each other because when somebody gives permission, they first listen to an excuse. And then somebody's excuse was heard, and then permission was given. Okay? Now what adhinat li rabbiha implies that it's as though it secured the permission from its master. Or it listened carefully to its master's instructions. But adhina also, is different from obeying a commandment. And that's the highlight that I wanted to share with you. When you obey a command, then you may or may not have wanted to do something. Right? You may or may not have wanted to do what you were commanded to do. But when you do something after an idhin, it's as though you wanted to do it, and finally the okay came. And the okay came and you could finally do it on your own. So this is adhinat li rabbiha. It finally secured the permission from its master and it was able to do what it had been wanting to do. In other words, the sky wanted to tear open. It's as though it's something it was designed to do, and Allah kept holding it back from destruction. Allah kept holding, and it's almost as though Allah keeps telling the sky every day, no, not yet, not yet, not yet. And finally tells it, okay, fine, you can go, you can release. This is actually similar to, you can compare it to, as the comparison will come anyway, a pregnant woman. A pregnant woman, her time comes, she's about to deliver the baby, she's going through incredible amounts of pain, and her body is just not releasing the child. Right? Allah hasn't given permission for her to release the child yet. And she's begging for the release. She's begging for that time to be over. But it's being held back. It's being held, no, not yet. Now there is an alternative philosophy of the reality of the world. There are some people who believe, yeah, there may be a God. He probably created this universe, and then He let it spin on its own. Let's just do whatever. He just made it and moved on, like a car manufacturer makes a car and moves on. Right? And it just does its own thing. It's actually the opposite view here. Allah not only made the universe, but He made it designed in a way that it was supposed to fulfill He made it to fall apart. He made it to be destroyed. And the only way it doesn't get destroyed is He keeps continually maintaining it and keeping it from crumbling. So its default state is falling apart. That's its default state. If it was left on autopilot, it wouldn't be left. That's our argument. That's the argument of the Quran. If it was, because they said the universe is running on its own, Allah's perspective on this, the one He teaches us is, it's actually, if it was on its own, it wouldn't even exist anymore. And one of the names of Allah that establishes this point is Al-Qayyum. Al-Qayyum, one of the names of Allah, which is roughly translated as the maintainer, or the establisher, what actually it means for Allah is, had it not been for Allah's constant care, nothing would survive. Like no electron would go around the nucleus. It wouldn't happen. No neuron would fire. It has to be Allah letting it happen, pushing it to move forward, because on its own it can't exist. Okay? And this is another kind of term for this is ghani. Wallahu ghani wa antumul fuqara. Allah is free of need, you're the ones in desperate need all the time. Meaning the entire universe is in constant need. And we're not, Allah is the only one who isn't. Anyhow, so that's adhinat li rabbiha wa huqqat. And it was rightful for it to do so. It's the passive form of haqqa. They say in Arabic, haqqa laka an taf'ala hadha. It's rightfully, it's appropriate for you to do this or that. It's the right on you. Huqqat, the passive form, suggests that it was an obligated right on it. In other words, it was the right time. It was the appropriate time. And it was well deserved. Like the sky needed a break eventually. It finally got to release its pressure. Okay? So وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا وَحُقَّتْ وَإِذَا الْأَرْضُ مُدَّتْ. And when the earth is stretched open, مَدَّ يَمُدُّ, like we do in tajweed. What's a mad in tajweed? Stretch. So مَدَّ يَمُدُّ مَدًّا فَهُوَ مَادٌ مُدَّ يُمَدُّ مَدًّا فَهُوَ مَمْدُودٌ. This is the maf'ul form, the passive form. And it actually means when the earth is literally stretched by Allah Azza wa Jalla. It is stretched. And it's stretched, some ulama comment that it's stretched because, the day of Arafah, the field of Arafah has to fit all of humanity. So the earth is stretched and the field of Arafah is stretched so that all of us can fit. All human beings can fit in that massive, massive field. Okay? Where's what? The field of Arafah? But where you go? Yawm Arafah? In Makkah? Okay. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ described, we're going to be gathered. Okay. So anyway, so وَإِذَا الْأَرْضُ مُدَّتْ وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا, and it cast out whatever was in it. It threw up, you can almost say, whatever was in it. Okay. So the earth is holding things inside it and it wants to push them out. Again, what is that similar to? A childbirth. That's why they say in Arabic, أَلْقَتْ مَا فِي بَطْنِهَا. When she gives birth, she cast out whatever was in her stomach. They use the same exact verb. That's the classical verb used for it. Okay, and it's not just throwing; it's pushing out, releasing from yourself. So Musa alayhi salam alqa asahu, same verb, alqa asahu. He pushed it out. When the mother was supposed to push the basket of the baby into the water, she couldn't just leave it gentle. She has to kind of give it a push and put it away from her. So she has to do ilqa of it. Okay. So yeah, it's like a nudge. Yeah. So وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا, so it pushes out whatever was in it. Now what's inside the earth? So all kinds of treasures, but in addition to that, it's all kinds of people, good people and bad people. And there are witnesses. Islahi's view on this I find very fascinating and I find it very convincing too. When Allah swears by something, which He has by the earth and He has by the sky. When He swears by something, He's actually calling them as a witness. So it is as though it's saying that the sky and the earth are actually witnesses to what we do. And when a witness has seen too much, and they've been told to stay silent. When a witness has seen too much and they're told to stay quiet, and they see and they see and they see and they see and they can't bear it anymore. And finally, the judge says, okay, what have you been holding back? And they just explode. The earth has been witness to so many crimes. It's carrying inside it so many sinners. It's in so many evils. And it's been holding back. It's been taking this beating and it's been holding back because the earth itself is in submission to Allah. And any creature that's in submission to Allah, when it witnesses rebellion against Allah, it's disturbing. Right? So what? So it just casts it out when finally Allah gives it permission. وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا. What? I didn't even say وَتَخَلَّتْ. And it gets emptied out. I've been bearing so much and finally it gets to be emptied out. وَتَخَلَّتْ. And khala yakhlu, to be emptied out. So takhalla, and we say, for example, in the Quran, فَخَلُّوا السَّبِيلِ, and leave their path. Like, make an open ways for people to pass. Okay, don't give them a hard time when they're traveling. Takhalla in Arabic, to be completely emptied out. The tafa'ul has a kind of mubalagha in it, so the suggestion is وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا وَتَخَلَّتْ, when it casts whatever's in it and it empties itself out, there's nothing left. There's no secrets left. You know, the idea of burying and secrecy are associated with each other, right? So there's nothing left buried. وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا وَتَخَلَّتْ. And why would it do so? وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا. It finally got the permission from its master to do so, and it was rightfully deserved. You deserve it, earth. You needed this break. You know, I know you couldn't bear anymore. So it's like Judgment Day comes when the clock of the earth runs out. It can't bear anymore of the crimes of humanity and of what it's been holding inside. Now the other thing inside this, these ayat, is something very beautiful about our view of creation. You know, someone who doesn't appreciate Allah looks at creation and says, what kind of God is this? He makes human beings and they get old and withered and their eyesight gets weaker and their back starts hurting and they get kind of, you know, they get blood pressure problems and their hearts fail and all disease, they become more prone to diseases, their immune system starts failing. You know, what kind of manufacturer is this? That he did this terrible kind of design to a human being. You know, if he's all perfect, he should have made a much better product of us. Right? And so why is this such a flawed creation? That's their view. Our view actually is Allah created death first. الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. And of course, when things deteriorate, when things are deteriorating, they're heading closer, and human beings, especially living things, as their bodies are deteriorating, what are they getting closer to? They're closing to death. So actually Allah created the default state of death first, and then life. And so all of the joys that you and I are experiencing is actually fighting against the inevitable. It's the other way around. And we were supposed to start withering. We were supposed to start, the hair was supposed to change color. The eyes were supposed to get weaker. This was supposed to happen. Because just like a day falls into night, just like the earth eventually is supposed to fall apart, Allah is holding it back. It's like your life every day, my life every day, Allah is letting it continue, but it's supposed to be in the state of death. And He's actually against the state of death and giving it life. Now the argument inside here for us is that actually when we start falling apart, when we start physically deteriorating even, that we were designed to do this for a purpose. Because everything Allah does, He does for a purpose. Every stage, every season in the year is for a purpose. Every stage of a day has a purpose. It's got a reason for it to be this way. We have a purpose too. Now, when we human beings design something, as opposed to Allah, when we manufacture a watch, a computer, a car, we want it to be timeless. We want it to last forever. We really want that. Does it though? No. Things we create, as much as we'd like for them to stay, timeless, and they just keep working and working and working without ever failing, without any need for any repairs. It just doesn't happen. Allah Azza wa Jal did not create us as permanent creatures for this world. However, Allah does have another, there's a Nu'man 2.0, there's a Nabil 2.0, there's a Muzammil 2.0, there's a Nusayba 2.0. There's another version of us that is going to be a recreation of us. Where is that going to be? In the Akhirah, when we're regenerated out of our graves, then actually it's a new model of us. It's us, but it's not us. It's actually khalqan akhar. It's another kind of creation. And that kind of creation, when we're regenerated by Allah Azza wa Jal, when we're recreated by Allah Azza wa Jal, the skin is not like what it used to be. The stomach is not like what it used to be. The eyes aren't what they used to be. They are some version of this that never deteriorates, because that life is designed to not deteriorate. This world was designed to deteriorate. It's by design. It's purposefully that way. Now, I've mentioned this in many lectures, but I'll share it with you again. A beautiful reflection of the scholars. which is that, when our bodies deteriorate, our back bends. Like you'll notice as a man, a woman gets really, really old, they can't stand straight anymore, their back bends. And when a child is very young, they're always looking up. They're trying to climb up something, go up the stairs, get up on the couch, looking up at the adults, looking up at something constantly. They just want to look up. And, if you put a baby, some babies like being on their belly, but even then they're never like this, like, what are you thinking about? No, they're always like, they stick their head up all the time. So the eyes are looking up. But as life comes to a close, the eyes are always looking towards the future home. Like as Allah bends the back and He just reminds the person towards the end of life, that's where you're going. You just have to look at that all the time. It's a reminder, وَمَن نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسُهُ فِي الْخَلْقِ. Whoever we give long age, we start deteriorating them in creation by design. So they can't possibly forget. And it's interesting, right? Older people complain about not being able to sleep at night, right? And that's a gift from Allah, actually. As you get closer and closer, when your mission in life is over, فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهُ. What's the best time to do ibadah? At night. Allah just opens the doors for them to just get closer to Him as they're getting closer to the end of this life. SubhanAllah.